If I were to ask you to give me a profile of these mass shooters, how you think they are as a person, what their hobbies are, people like hanging around them, what their personality may be, or, you know, stereotypes that you can think of, just from looking at the photos that you see online, their social media feed, or the photos that are being released concurrently in the media with respect to what they've done. And if you're going to be honest, you're probably going to say that a lot of them look like losers, rejects, abject failures, and you may even say that these people have a few screws loose in their head. Now, why did I just say that, or why did I ask you to give me a profile of these people? It's not meant to put these people down because I don't think there's any further that you can bring these people down given the desperate act that they've just committed. Or if you look at the background information of these people, it's just really the lowest of the low. The reason why I asked you to give me a profile of these people, or that specific question, was for a very simple reason. It's again to ask you, how do you think they ended up that way? Do you think that they just woke up one day and then decided, well, I'm going to carry out this atrocious act? No, of course not. It was a gradual process that led up to that climactic point. And here's the thing that you have to understand, there are a plethora of reasons as to why they ended up that way. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this particular video. To begin with, usually these types of people, um, they come from a very broken household. Either they didn't have attentive parents, they didn't have parents at all, or it's a single father or single mother household. More often, the latter. And having such a horrible time at home, well, it does hamper your development seriously, especially when it comes to your relationships with other people, how you foster relationships with them, the way you interact with the opposite sex, and just your overall development as a person, particularly during your teenage years to early 20s. That's why it's crucial that you have a strong nuclear family. It's what the conservatives always say, right? Because these are the first people that mold you, even before you go to school. Okay, they teach you how to be, they teach you all the limits, the rules of society, how things work, how you should conduct yourself. If you don't have that anchor within you, well, you're probably going to falter once you go out there in the wider world. And the thing is, what's lacking today in most households is a strong father figure. And this is especially more important if you have young men, because young men need grown men to look up to, someone they can respect, and someone they can choose to emulate. Because a guy who doesn't have somebody to aspire to be or to look up to, especially when they're in their teenage years, they go into haywire. They become very lost, disenfranchised, and they have no idea how to conduct themselves into the wider world. Now, this feeds back to my other points, which I want to further elaborate, which is the gender inequality between men and women, particularly how society treats um, men as a gender. Now, here's the thing that most people don't understand, especially with the current dynamics of dating right now and just the extreme inequality that's going on here. Now, if you look at the plight of these young men, I mean, it's really saddening to be completely honest. Because on the one hand, people don't really care about the situation of most men. Because if you really look at it deeply, women are more catered in our society, right? For instance, a guy has serious social issues, or when he feels depressed or anxious, what do people say? Oh, just man up. Oh, just suck it up. Be a man. Whereas for women, well, they get all of the treatment. Somebody gets to listen to them. But for men, when you start to show even a slight bit of weakness, you're seen as a weakling. People don't like to be around you because they find it repulsive. That's just the tip of the iceberg with respect to the gender equality here, the polarization that's going on. I think the biggest one here is I want to talk about is the just the uneven playing field that men and women have. Particularly, women have such a huge advantage. Take for instance, an average woman in the dating scene. An average woman will still get a lot of messages from guys. A lot of people will still want to talk to her and whatnot. But that's not the case for an average guy because the standards of society and women these days, with respect to what constitutes a great guy, is just astronomical. And they don't want an average guy. Okay, they want the guy who has everything, which is again pretty unrealistic. The guy has to be good looking. The guy has to have money. The guy has to have status. The guy has to be a somebody, at least in the eyes of society. But then again, the reason why I say it's unrealistic is because not because it's unachievable, but because by definition, most people are average. So this leads to men not having, the basic, once their survival needs are met, the basic things that they need, which is a relationship and sex. You take that away from them, well, they go crazy and it makes them feel bitter, anxious, and, you know, very depressed. And it can really lead them to very dark places. All right. Now, these two factors that I mentioned, broken family and perhaps inattentive parents or single mother household, single father household, on top of the very uneven dynamics between the genders, well, that's not all, right? If you think those two things are already very bad, you also have a crumbling society and a crumbling future ahead of these men. So, naturally, of course, these men will be very hopeless and nihilistic about the future. And once you lose hope, and Nietzsche said it already, right? You lose hope, it can really drive you insane. I mean, Nietzsche said this 200 years ago, right? That's why it's very important to have religion, the death of God. Without it, people don't have any direction and they fall in the shackles of nihilism. And in the collapsing world that we're living in, if you couple that with those two previous things that I've mentioned, well, it's not a surprise that these men want to lash out, that they feel the need to take out all of that pent up anger, frustration, depression, and anxiousness that they have towards others. So to me, when I see these rampant mass shooting, it really doesn't surprise me because I do think it's just natural conclusion from the current state of affairs that we have right now.